pitchfork, pushing all those sex crops up from the dirty ground.
How'd you get that fat lip? Old war wound. X up around morons.
Are we in?
This is Miller's Crossing.
We're in. Welcome to
Coen Brothers.
Comedy Bang Bang. No, sorry. Wait. What? You were right.
I was right.
The thing you said.
Why are you? This is not a bit. Coen Brothers. I'm Abe Epperson.
I'm Michael Swaim.
We are the brothers of the Coen Brothers.
We're just two mining brothers.
Just two Miller's brothers.
It's just two. Oh my God! The show's just two brothers.
Just two brothers.
It's just two brothers.
It's just two brothers. So we're coming back after Raising Arizona, and of course in 1990, they went to the Miller's Crossing, which is a fantastic film. I mean, that's what this show is going to be about mainly, is that we love the Coen Brothers. And
ha ha ha, my friend. Really? Okay, cuz I want to say this is the first one
brothers,
we've hit.
Not cuz.
That, true. True dat, bruv.
True, bruv.
Brov. But I appreciated it a lot more when I put more effort into watching it for the purposes of this podcast and really suss through the symbolism and the structure and the Yojimbo-ness of it all. But I never considered this a jewel in their crown. It's not my favorite one to watch, which on the Coen Brothers scale doesn't mean it's not engaging. It's incredibly engaging the whole time.
You're saying subpar Coen Brothers. Good movie, subpar Coen Brothers.
I feel that way, and I'm wondering if you do or don't.
I don't. I think it's a fucking jewel in their crown.
Right, okay.
It's such a... I mean, there's so many of them, obviously, right. But this one is so important to me because it's, in a way... To me, Blood Simple was like they're on deck, and they knocked it out of the park somehow still. And the batter up was Raising Arizona. This is them working within an institution where they're now like, here's the third thing. So we worked as independent filmmakers, 1. 2, we made our own auteur movie. 3, we're working in the studio system, and we're still fucking killing it. So it's like the 3 types of movies that they actually make, this is the third one, and they still fucking kill it. Because it's a transparent film, and by transparent, I mean, like, you don't feel the footprint as much of the Coen Brothers as versus, like, Raising Arizona or
Hudsucker. You're like, Coen Brothers style is blasting you in the face.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I like.
Those are my favorite.
Yeah.
But this is them showing they can do a studio film right out of the gate. And they've done several studio films.
And they did, and it's a story genre, not so much these days, but certainly in that era, mafia movie. It's like, okay, let's...
It's a gangster film.
Let's buckle down and do a thing that is a time-honored tradition and show we can do it well, and it's subdued.
Right.
Visually subdued, I mean. The plot is bonkers. But
it's kind of Big Lebowski-ian.
It's incredibly complex or Arrested Development-esque. Because I'll admit the first couple times I saw it, I didn't fully understand every little wrinkle of the plan, and now I do.
Yeah.
Which is a good segue into our first spectra. We always analyze these films through 3 spectra, and the first will be diegesis. What happened in the movie? What's the movie about? We've already alluded to the fact that it's about mobsters.
And just to signpost, the next thing we'll talk about after that is how do you do that?
No, pedagogy.
And then
how
where we talk about symbolism.
Exactly.
And then how do you do that if there's any outstanding things that we haven't talked about regarding the filmmaking itself.
Or just mind-blowing factoids, This is technically, diverging, but it's so interesting what you said about the 1, 2, 3, because it just makes me realize that Barton Fink is a movie about the studio system, but the movie itself is totally not a studio movie.
Right. Which will be next episode.
Right, so we can't talk about it, but the pattern's there. So this is a mob movie. It's loosely based on a Dashiell Hammett novel called Red Harvest.
Yeah.
And they love Dashiell Hammett.
And it was a flop.
Detectives. This flopped.
The budget was $14 million, and the box office was $5 million.
We gave him the hi-hat.
They gave him the hi-hat.
The box office let him go.
Playing Johnny Caspar would say.
Yeah, so who do we got in here?
Gabriel Byrne as Tom Regan. Marcia Gay Harden as Verna. Albert Finney. Leo. John Turturro in
Yes.
perhaps his best role,
Bernie
in my
Birnbaum.
opinion, as Bernie. John
Better than his
Polito's-
role in Oh Brother? Topic for another
don't make
day.
me
Great.
make me have them fight.
Don't make me choose my
I don't-
Turturros.
yeah. It's just this one, like that one's a comedy and he kills it. This
Right.
one is like a heart-wrenching performance that only a few actors have really touched.
Much like Blood Simple, if you listen to that episode, there is a sequence in this that became the legendary sequence, and we'll get to it. And it's Turturro just owning everyone.
J.E. Freeman as Eddie Dane and Steve Buscemi as Mink.
Buscemi?
Buscemi.
I think it's Buscemi.
You're probably right.
As Mink. Yeah. All right. So to give a broad overview, what it's going to be is a multi-layered thing. Okay. So there's the Irish mob and the Italian mob, and they're warring.
Yes.
And we follow the leaders of those two mobs and their consiglieres, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just a game. It's, if you're familiar with Yojimbo, which is the classic Kurosawa movie where a dude rolls into town, sees that there's two factions, and plays them against each other, and then blows out of town. It's a slight permutation on that.
That was a samurai film. Fistful
Right.
of Dollars is a Western. This is the noir version of that.
Yes. And of course, it's not identical because Gabriel Byrne's character, Tommy, who's our central character, has a vested interest in one side. But you, the audience, are not sure until the very end what his intentions were.
Right.
And it sort of becomes revealed that he always had everything in hand, and it was a crazy sequence of strategies.
And typically in both the case of Yojimbo and Fistful, I think our protagonists, like how they update that story in this one is that those stories are about tales of how badass your protagonist is at effectively like constitution checks and diplomacy checks throughout the fucking film. And it's about survival. Like the main goal is to survive, which is also Tommy's goal.
Right.
But he's, as you'll probably talk about, and even from the get-go, an immensely flawed human being. And the way they, I think, update it is that he doesn't even know why he needs to survive.
Right. And we'll get into it real deep. And I think the pedagogy spectrum of this film is off the charts good. And
so Act 2.
I guess where it falls down to me, it doesn't fall down, but I'm just saying the diegesis is basically just a very well-woven sequence of maneuvers.
Yeah.
And like Yojimbo or Fistful. So the maneuvers are this, and we probably can't go into every tiny detail because there's a lot of like double crossing and whatnot. But Gabriel Byrne, Tommy, is a very loyal consigliere to Albert Finney, who's the head of the Irish mob. And the Irish mob is waning while the Italian mob is waxing in power.
Johnny. So you got Leo versus Johnny and
Johnny Caspar, who's most
Tommy.
often referred to as Caspar.
Caspar, yeah. And you got Tommy, who's the right-hand man of Leo, and over the span of the movie, flips.
Yeah. And if you know Godfather, he's his consigliere, meaning he's his friend who advises him and is just always there hanging out.
He's also in a relationship with Verna, who is the, I guess, fiance by the end
By
of
Act
the film
2,
of Leo.
fiancé.
So he's literally having sex with the woman that the guy he starts with, Leo.
So here's the rub, right?
Yeah.
And this is the initial predicament our guy finds himself in and here's the tiny technical detail that starts all the events. Johnny Caspar has a fixed fight that he always wins at. He does it once a month, and it's his routine.
Yeah.
Well, the way a fixed fight works is, if you understand gambling, the more people who know about it, the less the fix gives you obscene profits because it dilutes the odds to the point where, if everyone knows it's fixed, then the bet is no longer a long shot.
It's not lucrative.
It's no longer lucrative. He feels that his fixed fights that he personally fixed, so he knows they're fixed, he's winning, but he should be winning more. And his suspicion is one of the bookies involved is selling the information that the fight is fixed to schmoes or friends, being like, hey, I got an angle. This gangster fixed this fight. You can bet on it too.
Yeah.
And he's saying, no, that's disrespectful to my fix. I put the fix in. That's my property as a mob boss. So
Everyone's got an uncle.
here's the thing. Without any proof, he assumes Bernie Birnbaum, who is a bookie in town played by John Turturro, is the one doing it. And the reason he assumes that is because Bernie happens to be gay and Jewish. And so there's a lot of like epithets in this that I'm not going to repeat. Schmata is antiquated enough that you kind of can.
Yeah.
They call him the Schmata all the time. I had to look it up. It means like a ragged piece of clothing that's falling off your bones. So it's obviously like offensive slang for Jews at the time.
Yeah.
So because he's like Jewish and gay, the guy's like, it must be him. He has no principles. He's corrupt inside.
Yeah.
But Bernie Birnbaum belongs to Albert Finney. And Albert Finney says, no, you don't have any proof. You can't kill my guy. Caspar just wants permission to kill this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he says no. And Caspar says, then I'll go to war, overthrow you, and destroy you and become the new head mafia guy. And basically the pickle our hero is in is he says, Leo, you got to admit that you're not going to win this war. This guy's power is rising. Yours is falling. You should let him kill Bernie Birnbaum.
There's 3 lines of dialogue that in that the last 3 lines of that scene in Leo's office, some brilliant screenwriting. Tom, think about what protecting Bernie gets us. Think about what offending Caspar loses us. Leo, oh come on, Tommy. You know I don't like to think. Tom, yeah, well, think about whether you should start.
Yeah, think about whether you should start thinking.
Yeah.
In that same scene, and this will come back, I actually think this is in sort of Caspar's pedagogy. He has this underlying symbolic arc of representing the honorable thief, the existence of an honorable thief, or who believes that honor could exist in that situation. So he says, it's getting so's a businessman can't expect a return on a fixed fight. If you can't trust a fix, what can you trust? This is a matter of character, ethics.
Yeah. He mentions ethics 3 times.
And he's a mass murdering mobster.
Yeah.
But ethics
and
is very important.
And a bad
to
father
him.
who slaps his son.
Yeah.
Even though his son's a piece of shit.
Yeah. Other just great lines from that scene. So you want to kill Bernie? Yeah, for starters. And then when he says no, Caspar says his favorite catchphrase. You're giving me the hi-hat. And Leo says what I think is an even better response. You know what? Take your flunky and dangle.
Yeah. There's so much archaic language and slang. I'm such a big fan of slang.
The Coens, obviously throughout their whole career, I think more than most screenwriters will take inspiration from a dialect choice.
Yeah.
And they don't care if it's accurate. Like people in Raising Arizona famously said, what are all these crazy Southern accents? No one from Arizona sounds like any of these characters. And they were like, it was an artistic choice that everyone in our fictive world has a unique dialect because that's a heart of a lot of our scripts is the dialect.
Right. And so most like, haha, you got a lip on you. It's like, it's not that like, you don't have to know the slang.
They're not beating you over the head with it.
Yeah. Like you understand what it is. You've heard that. But just like Verna saying, what are you chewing over? Yeah, I know what that means. No one in my life ever says chewing to mean like pondering.
Wake up, Tommy. I am awake. Your eyes are shut. Who are you going to believe?
Who are you going to believe?
So getting back to his central predicament, though, the reason Leo won't let Bernie be killed, which would solve all his problems, is because Bernie is Verna's brother.
Yes.
If you can believe it or not, Bernie Birnbaum and Verna Birnbaum
are
and
just 2 siblings.
Leo, she's this young, beautiful, vivacious woman that loves Leo, or does she, right? Because she is sleeping with this rich older mobster in exchange in some way for him to protect her brother at all costs.
Right.
So it is wholly unclear, but of course she says, no, but I also like him. What's wrong with me wanting to protect my brother? And I can have sex with whoever I want. But Gabriel Byrne, who's also having sex with her, this is where the mindfuck begins, is like, but you're having sex with me. So I know for a fact, because I am betraying Leo, that Leo's getting played. Then he goes into the next room and advises Leo, you're getting played, dude. But he can't admit that he knows he's getting played because he's the guy playing him.
He also calls both of them more or less grifters. Like they just... whatever the Birnbaums, like whatever town they're in, they can't help themselves. They need to just make a buck.
Right.
Like, they need to, like in terms of, which is a big thesis of this film, which is just like every friend, someone's like, we're friends. it actually kind of means like we're friends now, but we're enemies later, and like no one's truly friends. And so they're all grifters, but like Tommy like comes down hard on Verna about how Bernie is he's just trying to get an extra buck at any time.
Tommy constantly projects his own self-loathing,
which is
onto
what he does.
The people around him. It's a repeated tactic for him.
Yeah.
Right. Like he goes to Leo and goes like, "You're being a fucking idiot." And you know that he's telling that to himself. Because he's like loyal to Leo and he's like, "Why am I doing this?" And he'll have sex with Verna and then call Verna a whore for betraying Leo. And it's like, dude, you're talking to yourself.
Yeah. He can't, and Tommy ultimately, the problem that propels, it's like an internal struggle. Like this movie has superfluous random like circumstance, like in most noirs, where he's a man with a plan. He's trying to do things, but serendipitously things happen to him and he just adjusts
the plan,
which is a Coen Brothers, like thing in their hat.
It's not Ocean's 11 where nothing ever complicates the plan.
Right.
The plan evolves as challenges arise.
So he has a plan, but he also is a principled man, he says. And so he believes that there's two types of people with plans and people who have principles. And the problem is that he doesn't know which one he is. He says he's
until
a principled
the end of the
person,
film.
But he has a plan and he wants to get out of his situation and still wear his hat, so to speak, which is kind of a...
Right.
Yeah.
So his A goal is loyalty to Leo.
Yeah.
And he does feel that it's a principle. And we see that principle hold up to challenges when it shouldn't.
Right.
And a good example is the very next sequence is Caspar getting him pulled off the street separately to have a private meeting and go, "Look, I know you're smart. I know that we all know Leo's just doing this for this dame. Like, I'm going to go to war. And like, I don't want that. It costs me money. Dozens of my guys will die and dozens of your guys will die. But I will go to war over this."
Right.
And he goes, "What about I cut you a check for $100,000 right now? You tell me where Bernie is and you just take that secret to your grave. Don't tell Leo you told me."
Yeah.
And he says, "And if you say no, my guys are going to beat the shit out of you right now."
Right.
And even though he just came from Leo's office where he advised Leo that that is exactly what they should do, he can't do it because the offer is without Leo's consent. Right. His principle is like, well, I wish I could do that, but that's not the game. That's not the rules of the game I play.
They come in and try to beat the shit out of him, and he hits one with the chair. And I love that little moment. That's what Coen Brothers are so good about. That scene is so good. And when he hits him with the chair, and he goes, "Jesus, Tommy."
Well, just to set it, so he says no, and Caspar goes, "All right," and one goon comes out.
Yeah.
And Tommy just takes off his
I think
coat,
it's Frankie,
looking like he's gonna fight. But then at the last second, he wallops the guy in the face with the chair. Yeah.
Who, by the way, Tom never throws a punch in the entire film. He only takes punches.
The only thing he ever does is swing the chair.
And I think that the chair swing is so that he actually doesn't
throw a punch.
Because
he's not a fighter.
I think that they knew that they could get away with that because they wanted to make him a man of nonviolence, but then they had to rectify scene-wise.
Well, because,
him anticipating a punch. And so they chose a chair.
Spoiler alert, he decides on principle over having a soul because one of his final lines is, "What heart?" And he does kill someone. We'll get to the, but he takes one life in the film, and it's that moment where you're like, oh, his soul is damned.
Yeah.
And it would lose its punch if he had been like an action hero up to that point.
Which surprisingly makes him a better gangster because now he's willing to kill people.
Yeah.
Instead of being like this puppeteer. But that action is what makes the actual end of the film where he walks away from
the job
Albert
itself,
Finney, and he's just like, I'm going to another city. Like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So he's actually, at his heart, he's not a good man, but he does not have the stomach to be a bad man.
So I would say, to keep people on track, there is an A plot and a B plot in this film, but they're both... The film stays very close to Tommy. They're both goals of his. His main goal is this overarching gang war and somehow helping Leo end up on top or limiting the amount of devastation that is done to Leo's organization. His B plot is, which we need to make a point of, he's a terrible gambler. It's a B plot that will be strung throughout.
And Leo multiple times says like, I'll settle your debts.
It's another part of his principle. Leo says, are you crazy? I'm the Godfather. Essentially, I'm like the Godfather from Godfather. And everyone knows who you are. If you told this low-level bookie, just forgive my 35 grand or Leo will cover it, I would cover it. That's one of the perks of being in the mafia. And he's like, no, I don't want your charity. That's not how I roll. That's not my principle. I made the bet. I'll pay the bet back. Mm-hmm. So there's this guy who keeps sending goons to say like, please don't make us break your legs. Can't Leo just cover it? And he's like, I'll pay back. And he goes, another bet in the 5th on this. And they go, don't do it, man. It's not going to like
I got to do it.
So he has
500.
He's on the worst streak of his life. And that's a B plot that comes up throughout. I think we should highlight, not really go into because it's pedagogy, but highlight that the major like symbolic tropes are his heart. People constantly mention his heart.
Yeah.
And hats.
Yeah.
And if you've ever listened to the great history podcast, The Dollop, they have proven many times over, there are times in American history where hats are the most important. That's like your most important thing.
They're a symbol of status.
They're a symbol of status, of class, of everything. Yeah.
To be continued.
All right. So where are we? He's in the warehouse. He hits the guy with the chair. And the funny part is the guy he hits, who's a goon who's coming to beat him up.
They all know each other, so they're like friends kind of, but it was like, I got to beat you down. Sorry, man.
And he's offended that he hit him with the chair. He's like, Jesus, Tommy.
Like, just take the beating, man.
Just take the beating, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not going to kill you.
Yeah.
Why do you have to come at me with the chair?
So then before he can get beat too bad, though, the cops rush in because currently, and this is important because it's going to change, Leo owns the mayor's office and the police force. So they are totally compromised by that mob and they work for that mob. So they come in and beat the shit out of the guys that were beating the shit out of him and just let him go. Mm-hmm. And of course, later we will see as Caspar gains influence, it's a great technique. There's an identical shot. The A shot is one time in Leo's office, you see him having cigars with the mayor and the chief of police and they're all smiley and buddy-buddy with this mobster. At the mirror image point in the 3rd act, you go into Caspar's office, and in an identical shot, they're there now.
Yeah.
And Tommy's like, weird to see you guys here. And they're like, oh, Caspar's always been a pillar of the community.
And that symmetry does not change, like, because I also want to point out the 2 attacks on the street where Tommy goes and he drinks a bottle and he throws it away, and then he gets in Act 3, he gets a glass from the chief of police. Mm-hmm. Basically what it is that it's 2 different sides of like essentially the same street. Like it's not the same location, but it's like this, everything's screen direction left to right in the first one, and then everything's a mirror image and right to left on the second, down to who's over whose shoulder. Which in the second case, Sam Raimi plays one of the gangsters who just shoots and then dies.
Look for that Sam Raimi cameo. Yeah. And in fact, he plays like the worst cop ever. Yeah. He's they yell, "Hey, okay, we're gonna stop shooting, but you guys got to come out with your hands up." And a guy comes out with his hands empty, waving a white flag. Sam Raimi looks at the other cops like, "Get a load of this." Steps forward and shoots that guy in cold blood.
And then he gets shot. Yeah.
And then he immediately gets shot.
And
back,
so the 2 like street gun battles are punctuated by Tommy talking to the chief of police, and in both they're literally mirror images of themselves.
Yes, meaning so
that's twice now.
When the power changes hands, Leo, of course, uses the police to raid Caspar's places,
right?
And Caspar uses the police to raid Leo's places,
right?
And in both instances, what Abe's saying, one time the bullets are going from left to right into the plate glass, and one time it's the same shot, but they're going from right to left into the plate glass.
And it's
these shots are an hour apart, so I love that it's not like they're not going, look at this thing we did. You got to remember that.
Yeah.
And in both sequences, Tommy happens to be out inside. He happens to stumble out and have
to take a drink,
a conversation with the chief of police. But what I think is illuminating about those pair of scenes is the first time the chief of police, in the first instance, he's nominally loyal to Leo. And the chief of police is bitching about how Leo really shouldn't start this war. It's
Yep.
stupid. He should just let Bernie go. And even though Gabriel Byrne, again, agrees with him, we know he does.
Yeah.
He just told Leo that's his advice. He like grabs him by the collar and is like, "How dare you question Leo?
How dare you
just
betray Leo?
You do whatever the fuck he tells you to do."
Said by Judas. Yeah.
Exactly. And then what's funny to me is after he is flipped and he's nominally loyal to Caspar, he comes out and talks to the chief of police, and the chief of police goes, "This war is pretty crazy, huh? I think Caspar should chill out." And he goes, "Yeah, probably." So it's like a clue that he's not truly loyal to Caspar.
No, he's not.
No.
He's a betrayer and a non-loyalist in both sides of. So he's Yojimbo.
But I do think there's clues that the whole time this was a bromance.
Yeah.
In his heart of hearts, he was always
He's Leo's man.
What's sad is he really does love Verna.
Yeah.
Like he has the feelings of attraction and love for her, but he never loved her more than he loved Leo. I feel that he would always sacrifice her for Leo.
I think you're right about that. I think because he is convinced himself he's a principled man, and he's not a man with a plan.
Right.
He's just a principled man, and his principle is to follow Leo. The problem is that he also is a man with a plan and wants to run away with Verna, and that's antithetical to his
what
purpose.
He thought his
principles.
identity was, yeah.
So in other words, and which is, I mean, we're skipping right into pedagogy, but that's kind of true about this film because there's not like the story is already laid out. Like I don't know, but it's insane to me that like the true purpose of I think those scenes and especially of just in general his inability to resolve his reality. He can't rectify it, and it's not a plight on him. It's a blight on the people he leaves in his wake.
And he gives us very few clues to his interior life. This is a cold character. You don't feel yourself attaching to him or finding yourself charmed by him. And I think that's because, and that's the question. If you're just a machine that accomplishes goals, and this is what they say several times, like Verna, everyone has a different theory. Verna says, no, you have a heart. Right. You just put on this cold front, right? That's an obvious theory for a guy like that. By the end of the movie, he says, no, I really don't think I have a heart inside.
Right.
And that's the chilling end beat of this is like, oh, that's what he found out about himself.
He has said from the beginning, though, like there's a sequence of lines where he tells, also as a kind of C plot that just comes in.
The runner about Mink and the Dane?
Rug Daniels.
Oh, right.
The politician dies and is shot. And the way they do that is beautiful because the way they physically, like the shots are a shot of a kid looking at a dead body and then the dead body breathes and he's like, oh shit, he's still alive. And then he takes his toupee.
He steals his toupee.
And then he runs away and there's a shot of a dog
also,
as well.
the tone of the scene, it's not, you can't appreciate it unless you know. It's a beautiful, bright, like dawn morning that makes the cobblestones glow. And someone off screen is whistling a beautiful, jaunty tune throughout the whole sequence.
Right.
So it's this kid looking at this grotesque dead body on a beautiful morning where you hear someone going like,
Yep.
It's such like a weird tone. I loved it.
It's such
and it ends on a shot of like a cute puppy.
Yeah. And so that becomes relevant later because everyone's like, why did they take his toupee? Because they all are blaming each other for his death.
We're not going to be able to connect every explanation.
Which the reality is that Mink actually shot him because of things that we're going to go on.
Other things.
But I just wanted to before we move to that point, just wanted to point out dialogue about Tom and Verna. At one point, Tom arrives at her like vanity, like where she's putting on her makeup.
At the club.
And he says, Rug Daniels is dead. And Verna says, gee, that's tough. And then Tom says, don't get hysterical.
Yeah, well, that's all deadpan.
Right. And so he doesn't actually have feelings.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have a heart.
And you also see in that scene, which is roughly where we are in the flow of diegesis, that he leans on her really hard to give Bernie up. Basically says, come on, let us kill your sister or your brother. Yep. And when she says no, he says, well, you realize then you're just a whore because you're just having sex with Leo. It's so, what I love is the layered complexity of the love emotion. Like, this is such a complex love triangle for everyone, because he's like, you're just a whore. And then she's like, then why are you fucking sleeping with me? And he's like, because I love you, kid. And then kisses her in like a forceful way.
Right.
So violently that she slaps him.
Yeah,
but you know, he means
punches
both. He hates her and loves her at the same time, which is a rare situation to be in. He throws a whiskey glass, destroying her vanity. And there's great lines there. She says, I suppose you think you raised hell. And he says, sister, when I raise hell, you'll know it.
You'll know it. Yeah.
So
that's so good.
Basically, what propels the plot next is he comes home. After all, we know all these things. This war is brewing. There's the love triangle. Everything's set up. He's got gambling problems. He comes home one night, and this is a great recurring technique in this film. This film has at least 4 moments where there's a long, long shot where you think you're just in a room watching a simple transaction, and then it pans over and there's a dude sitting there. They do that like 4 times in this.
Yeah.
So he goes...
usually with the Dane.
Yeah. He calmly takes off his jacket, gets undressed for bed, sits on the bed, and then looks off camera in a way where you're like, what is he looking at? And he goes, hey, Bernie.
Hey, Bernie.
And it pans over and John Turturro's there. And John Turturro
This is
goes,
after he's supposedly killed him.
Hey, Tommy, what's the rumpus? No, not yet.
Oh.
This is the first beat of that. He has literally just come by to beg, to say,
oh, yeah.
Look, you have the ear of the Godfather. Please tell him I'm a good guy. Mm-hmm. And he goes, yeah, that's what I've been hearing. You obviously have a bunch of friends who've been coming forward to say you're a good guy. Your sister's vouching for you. And this is one of my favorite aspects. Bernie is basically Loki. Like, Bernie is solely an agent of fucking chaos.
Well, he's always trying to get his.
Right, but what I love is his sister is risking so much to save his life.
He doesn't.
Yet behind her back,
that doesn't matter.
The way he talks about her is so cruel. Right.
Yeah.
Like, he says, can you believe she's fucking me and Leo? And he goes, of course I can. She's crazy. You know, she tried to fuck me when I was growing up to make me ungay, to like ungay me.
Right.
And instead of thinking of that as like, wow, that must have been hard for her too, he's like, she's a sick twist, all right. Like, yeah, what a sick fuck she was.
Yeah, well, you stick by your family.
Well, that's okay. So that's the lines I love. He goes on and on. He goes, yeah, she's a freak, man. She tried to fuck me when I was a kid. She's sick. And he goes, well, she speaks very highly of you. Yeah, well, you stick by your family.
Yeah, she's a sick twist, all right.
Yep. So basically, everyone wants to bribe this man of principle to betray his principles. And this is Bernie's attempt. He says, I know the bookie Lazaro who you owe all the money to. I can clear the debt if you'll just advise Leo not to kill me or let Caspar kill me. And he says, look, Caspar already offered to clear the debt. And I said, no, obviously I'm going to say no to you. Next is actually the warehouse scene where he gets beat up by Caspar. But the point is, like an old joke, we have 2 beats of he refuses, he gets another offer, he refuses, he gets an even sweeter offer, he refuses. He's not going to betray Leo.
Right. And by the way, at the beginning of the club scene, he meets Mink before he walks into Verna's room.
Who's Steve Buscemi.
And Mink is just, it's clear that Mink's up to something.
Mink is terrified for his life.
Yeah. And clearly in cahoots with Bernie.
And clearly aware that he doesn't know how these chips are going to land between Leo and Caspar, and he doesn't want people to think he was involved with Bernie, but everyone kind of knows.
Yeah.
And so
he's like, fuck.
This is like a D plot. This movie has lots of levels of plot, but there's just a couple scenes where Buscemi is coming up, and they're always used for great comedic effect. Comes up to Tommy, and Tommy basically fucks with him. He goes like, Tommy, you know, I just wanted to say Bernie's a great guy, but you didn't hear that from me. I'm just advising you. I don't think you should kill him or anyone who worked with him. Like, I don't think what he did was bad.
We're friends. Yeah.
And he goes, and you wouldn't, and then all Tommy says is something like, I'll make sure to tell Leo what you said about you and Bernie working together. And he goes, oh no, Jesus, Tommy. Who said that? That's not Tommy, Jesus.
Tommy, why would you do that? Oh.
But basically, because of his refusal, Leo's continued to refusal to let Caspar kill Bernie because he loves Verna. The war begins. And we already talked about police raids go back and forth, but then finally things come to a head in a scene I would like you to describe because you did the kissy noise about Albert Finney, so you should describe the most badass thing Albert Finney will ever do on film.
Are you talking about
the attempt on his life? This is the act break.
I love how it starts with the cigar.
Yep.
Because he's just enjoying a night in front of the fire, having a sherry or something.
He's listening to Danny Boy, The Pipes Are Calling on a phonograph.
The pipes, yeah. Which is, when we were watching it together, we were both like, oh yeah, they didn't really have, there's not a lot of Irish tunes that you could listen on phonograph at this time.
Even the richest mobster has shit music.
Even though it's just Danny Boy, it's it makes sense that even though it's kind of a funeral tune.
It is. It's played traditionally at funerals. So
foreshadowing, even though he doesn't die. So,
I mean for all the other folks in this scene.
Right. It's just death has crept up on him.
Yeah.
What I love what's painterly about this sequence is that he hears downstairs a quietness, an abrupt, someone's breaking in. And then he puts out his cigar, puts it in his robe pocket, and grabs his gun. And as
then you see smoke rise from between the floorboards.
Yeah, because they're burning. And he's that's when he knows. He's they're trying to kill me.
Yeah.
And when they bust in, he gets under the bed and shoots them in the feet and then puts one in the brain because you always put one in the brain.
Repeated motif is the mobsters have the rule that the whack is not complete till you go up and put one in the brain.
Yeah, and so he shoots, which was also referenced in No Country for Old Men, I believe.
Same technique.
Yeah.
It's a real technique.
Shoot the legs, they fall, shoot the brain.
That's part of SWAT training is the double tap technique for under cars. Yeah. If that's how you get someone who's hiding behind a car.
And so a scuffle happens. But what's amazing about Albert Finney is that, Gabriel Byrne does it later in the movie. So he learned.
He's not there in this scene.
He learned it from Leo. Just the idea of so there's another one in the house. I'm going to put all of my fucking cards on the idea that he thinks that I'm still up here. And I'm going to just remove the rug right from beneath him. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a fucking Tommy gun, jump out a window, and just wait for him to inspect my room.
Because he wouldn't think that an old man would have jumped out of the 2-story window.
And and he does it with a fucking...
A plum.
Yeah, a plum. And he just shoots him forever. And then...
Yeah, Albert Finney, the guy looks around huh? And Albert Finney... just shoots him for 7.5 minutes.
Yeah, it's just the long, which is a thing that I think the Coen Brothers were doing.
I think it's an homage to classic
in the
gangster
Sam Raimi
films.
sequence too, it's just way too many bullets.
Which, if you watch old gangster movies, when you got hit with a Tommy gun, you would stay upright for so long, going, "Ow, God!"
I think it's pretty an intentional, it's comedic to the Coen Brothers that how much they shoot him because the guy gets 80 bullets in him,
Yeah.
Anyway, there's also the getaway car. And so they drive around in this, Ford Model something.
Model T or some shit.
And what's amazing is he just keeps shooting. So he's already killed the guy upstairs, but he sees the car going away. And he just shoots the shit out of the back of the car, killing the driver. Killing everyone, really, with his bullets.
So the car
crashes and explodes, and then he puts the cigar back into his mouth
and lights it. Yeah,
yeah. It's it's just business as usual for Albert Finney,
right?
And he's just so effective, which is what is referenced later, because then the following scene.
I reckon I could still trade body blows with any man in this town.
And Gabriel Byrne is just why would?
But why would you?
I told you about this Bernie thing. Why are you inviting a war with Caspar?
You can't take a war. And he's like, fuck you, I can take a war.
He's I'm good at fighting.
He's kind of Robert Baratheon, where he's older, but he's still don't call me old. I could fucking beat anyone at war still. Fuck you.
Maybe not you, but I can beat most of them.
He says that to Tommy to be nice. He goes I could kill anyone, Tommy. Never you, Tommy. Not you.
Which is, because they have that mutual love.
It's a bromance. The movie's a bromance. It's a bromance. Because Verna is eventually cast aside by Tommy, at least.
Right. Gangster bromance.
So, of course, this causes a rumpus.
Yeah.
Another term used in the film a lot. Tommy busts into Leo's office what the fuck are we going to do? And Leo's what? It was an adventure. Relax. You know, he's not being worried enough to make Tommy feel that he's thinking. Again, Tommy doesn't think Leo thinks enough.
Right. Which I think is also funny because Caspar at one point says, one thing I always try to teach my boys, always put one in the brain.
Yeah.
Which is a bullet, but also it's an idea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, because that's how Tommy marionettes.
Oh, my stretch, the one I don't know if it's intentional, but I got a stretch out of it, was the line in this sequence where he says, so he's okay, he wasn't even injured. And he goes, old man is still an artist with a Thompson.
Yeah.
And Thompson is also called a
Tommy
Tommy. So, and his name's Tommy. So it's like Leo still has you wrapped around his finger.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Anyway, in this sequence, totally offhandedly, Tommy finds out that the slug they dug out of Rug is a 22, which is a bullet that is particular to a small kind of gun that Verna has.
Right.
So as a side note, in his love triangle...
It's like a Derringer single shot.
He has even more reason to think that Verna's a phony and just playing him. He loves her.
He thinks that she killed Rug.
He thinks she killed Rug.
Because Leo put...
Rug on her as a tail.
Yeah.
But of course, in the end, which is great because it's the one plot point that doesn't connect. And I was sitting there typing like, what is this?
Even Tommy doesn't
There's
know.
a plot hole. And then finally
Bernie's
at the end,
the only one who knows.
Bernie, he goes, whatever happened to Rug? Who shot Rug? Oh, Mink shot Rug. Why? It was a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So it's like some shit can just happen.
Like he thought he was tailing
him.
Mink thought he
and
was
Mink
tailing
is paranoid,
him.
but it had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
It was a coincidence.
It was just because
he hangs out with Verna.
Mink didn't want anyone to know that he and Bernie were in cahoots.
We're lovers also.
So in other words, he thought he was tailing him to get like some vig
dirt on him.
Yeah.
Especially
but
because
it wasn't even an involved.
The thing you need to know about
Verna.
Mink is Mink and Dane are in a committed gay relationship.
Yeah.
And the Dane is Caspar's Tommy. The Dane is his consigliere. And whereas in the Leo-Tommy situation, Leo's the muscle and Tommy thinks, it's vice versa with Caspar. Caspar's the man with the plan, and the Dane is basically a scary Anton Chigurh-like monster.
Right. Oh my God. He's so good, though, because he's silent for the first half of the time he's on screen. He only has talked when they like point at him.
He only ever talks to Tommy, and all he ever says is, "That's real funny.
That's real funny.
You're a smart
Very
guy.
smart.
Yeah.
What you doing at the club, talking things over with Leo?" You know, like he's a perfect detective.
Yes.
Because he's just quiet and asks questions.
And of course, he does end up piecing shit together.
You're
so
too
he's not
goddamn
dumb.
smart. Like in his opinion, the talk is nonsense.
But the point is, Mink killed Rug because he was afraid that Rug was being sent by the Dane, and then the Dane would find out he's cheating on him. But that's actually not what was happening. Leo had sent Rug to follow Verna. Blah 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 blah.
But now we have a land war.
We have a land war in Asia.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the big change in the Leo-Tommy relationship because he says, look, after this, they're obviously coming for blood. This is a full-on land war. You're going to have to be in protection from now on, like moving from place to place every night, checking for car bombs and shit. This is stupid. Break up with Verna. And he goes, it's funny you should say that. I had decided to ask her to marry me.
Yeah.
And he goes, look, Leo, this is hard to say, but Verna's fucking me, okay? So she doesn't care about you. Break up with Verna. And Leo is even still like, oh, that sucks, but I bet we could work through it.
Get out, though.
But get out, please, for fucking my girlfriend.
Walking down the hallway.
And Tommy's like, yeah, like it's either me or this plan, this crazy plan where you marry Verna and protect Bernie is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And he goes, then get out. And he leaves his office.
And then Finney comes.
Finney takes his jacket off slowly inside the office.
So there's about 15 seconds of off-screen happening where Albert Finney is like
thinking,
you know what, I'm mad. You know what, I need to hit him.
Yeah.
You know what? And then he goes out, and while Gabriel Byrne is walking down the corridor, he just beats the shit out of Tommy. So Leo is now turning against his own consigliere.
And he takes it, like in the way where if the mob boss starts beating you in the club, you
fight back.
You do not fight back, yeah.
And he beats him in a way kind of reminiscent of Raising Arizona. Like, when he decks him off his feet, he's somehow transported like 20 feet back.
Yeah.
Just to show the prowess of fighting of Leo, like that he really is a good fighter. Like, in addition to, he's fighting a guy who isn't really putting up a fight, but like when he does punch you, he's good.
And and it becomes official because it's like someone in the audience is like, I guess he's out of the gang or whatever, and he's like, that's right, it's the kiss off.
Yeah, it's the kiss off.
If I ever see him again, it'll be too soon.
Yeah. Such good language there.
Yeah, so
kiss off, because it's like the kiss of death, but it's also like
they refreshed it.
It's also like I kiss you though because I do love you.
Yeah.
You
broke my heart.
You broke my heart.
The Coens take old tropes, but they never let them be just tropes. They refresh them in their own unique way.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things that makes every film feel alive. So now we've reached the midpoint.
Yeah, which now starts like everything, because everything is now coming at Tommy. Like, so the thing we haven't talked about is Lazar.
We have a bit. That's the guy he owes all the gambling debt to.
So now everyone in town knows that Leo is not protecting Tommy anymore, and Tommy is a guy who is very effective. So that's why Caspar like courts him, but also he's got all these debts that like Lazar knows that he's not going to plan. So now like he's got tails. He's got messengers coming at him, threatening him, like, throughout the rest of the movie.
Verna's still coming at him to ask, why the fuck did you do that? Like, why'd you tell him? Why'd you ruin my thing with Leo?
So Tom meets up in the Yojimbo way. He's like, well, now I don't have that protection, so I'm going to go to Caspar.
And I want to say this now. He ends up being in Caspar's gang, and a series of events unfold in which, as you said, sometimes it's clear that he has the plan in hand and is the manipulator. Sometimes he's responding to events he couldn't have predicted.
Right.
It does ultimately end in Leo's victory. And at the end, Leo says, I didn't know you were a double agent the whole time. You should have told me. And he accepts that truth. Like he says, yeah, I was a double agent.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure. Like I wonder, and the movie I don't think really tells you, at the beginning of his relationship with Caspar, do you think he ever really thought, I'm going to be Caspar's man now. Fuck Leo?
No way.
You think like his beating heart is loyalty to Leo at all costs?
He's trying to fuck Leo because he loves him so much. In other words, he's trying to show him pain because he's like, you didn't do what I said, Leo.
He says, if I show you enough pain, you will give up Bernie, and this will solve your thing.
Yeah.
But you think
I'm
ultimately...
going to kill Bernie, but he can't even kill Bernie.
Right. Okay. So that's what... So basically... if we accept that as truth, Tommy's goal is to get Bernie killed because that would end the war.
Yeah.
So he goes to Caspar and says, look, I have fresh bruises. Leo threw me out. I'm fucking his fiance. Isn't that enough to prove I'm ready to flip? Mm-hmm. And he says, not really. You know what would prove it? Kill Bernie, personally.
Take him out. Put one in his brain.
Yeah. And the Dane, important point, never buys his shit. The Dane from Square One is like, Caspar, this guy's a double agent. He loves Leo. He's going to fuck us. And from Square One, which is very wise, Tommy is planting seeds in Caspar's brain about like, don't you think it could be the Dane is just jealous? Or maybe he's the double agent? Like things like that. So, there's this weird shit with Mink, and Mink works with Bernie. Maybe the Dane is in on it.
So... Dane's not there for this one, so it's Frankie and Tic Tac.
Frankie and Tic Tac.
And which are just great gangster names.
The gangster names in this are terrible. Mink, Rug, Frankie, and Tic Tac.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Dane.
Yeah. So they go out and they know where Bernie is because Mink let that information, which is kind of the peace offering that Tommy gives to Caspar, is I know exactly
he's in
where
this hotel room, right?
And
actually,
the Dane's like, don't touch Mink.
We have to mention, actually, that's one of his key losing his soul moments because Mink didn't slip.
With Verna?
He fucks Verna one last time, and then in the aftermath of making love, he says, by the way, where exactly is Bernie staying? And she says, why do you need to know that? And he says, Leo's no longer protecting him because I'm not in his ear and we had a big fight, so I better go there and tell him to split.
Yeah.
But you know that he just used a woman he loved to kill her own brother. Yeah.
And got the information for the killing stroke.
And then I love that, I think it's clear in the direction. You can see in her eyes, because they linger on her at the end of the scene, She knows that might be what's going on.
Yeah.
That it could be either way.
You got no heart. What, you know?
She says, you got a heart. It's just so tiny and you can't remember the last time you used it.
What heart?
Yeah.
So they go out so at the top of this podcast, the performance I'm alluding to really for Turturro is this sequence, which is they go out into the woods and he pleads for his life. And it's a dream, actually. The woods represent something that we were talking about, which we'll get to later. But they go out into the woods.
Wait, this is not literally a dream sequence. Just so
it's not literally a dream
confused.
sequence.
Okay.
He just Tommy has a dream about going out to the woods,
right?
And we were going to talk about later what the woods means.
We're going to talk about his dreams in pedagogy
and what hats
obviously.
mean.
Dreams are always
hats
symbolic
woods,
clues,
which are the poster of this movie. But anyway, Tic Tac and Frankie don't need to see the murder, so they just say, "Take this gun, go out and shoot him," and then it's just a monologue of John Turturro.
Gabriel Byrne does not speak.
It's
like a 4-minute scene.
And it's fucking insane, this performance, because he's just crying.
And it escalates. He Rolodexes every possible tactic, playing it off like, this isn't going to happen. You're
I'm
going to
bargain with you then, and we'll get out of this. Oh my God, you're really doing this? But you know me. You know me. You wouldn't be the guy to do this.
And then breaking down to like, look, let's be more honest than we've ever been in our lives. We're all mobsters. These guys are animals. But I can see in your eyes, you're not like that. You're
and he's right.
And I've never killed someone. Really, I've ripped a lot of people off. I've never killed someone. Don't you worry, you'll be judged for that. Like, I know you haven't passed that threshold. You don't want to do this? And it just escalates. We cannot do it justice. Watch the sequence. It ends with, he only was given the lines, I'm praying to you, look in your heart. Yeah. And he's allowed to repeat them as long as he wants. He repeats them like 30 times, and they're amazing.
Yeah, and it's insane. So the resolve of this
is, I think, very important because he says, look in your heart. And we know that a thesis of the film is,
what heart?
Does this guy have a heart? And this is one of the few times where it's evidence on the other end of the spectrum.
Right. He actually... God, I'm just a grifter. Tom, I'm a nobody, but I'll tell you what. I've never crossed a friend, Tom. I've never killed anybody. I've never crossed a friend, nor you. I'll bet. We're not like those animals. This is not us. You know, it's just...
Well, now they don't have to see it because you did it way better than Turturro.
No, I didn't. It's just, he's like praying to him.
Yeah.
And he's asking him to look in his heart. And then... Tom does this ridiculous thing where
it's another one
no reason if he is a man with principle,
right,
or a man with a plan, one of those two, he does this third thing.
Well, this is the whole reason he got to this point. This was his whole goal. He wants Bernie to be dead. That would solve everything.
Yeah, this solves everything. He concocted this plan with the punctuation of, I'll take the information from Verna. I'll go to Caspar. I will kill this. But he looks him in the eyes.
He can't do it.
He's on the ground.
Yeah.
And he says, get the fuck out of here.
You're dead.
You're dead.
And he goes, I understand. I'm dead. God bless you. And he says, don't God bless me. You're dead. You can't talk.
You can't be here. You're just gone.
Yeah. So he runs away. And I love this crossfade because...
And he does two pops to show to
pretend he killed
Frankie and Tic Tac hear two gunshots.
Yeah. But also first of all, it's another one of their pullback reveals because in the first gun pop, it cuts to a chest up shot of Turturro kneeling on the ground. In pain. And you could easily believe, he shot him in the gut and they're about to pan down. But then it takes a long few seconds to realize, oh no, he shot the ground. He just shot
the ground, yeah.
And I love that reveal. And then the other just technique I love in this sequence is after he runs away, we're on a wide shot of Tommy in profile facing right. And it crossfades such that he is perfectly overlaid on the profile of Tic Tac facing right.
Right.
And it's a very simple thing, but it's just saying he did the thing and now he's one of them. He's in the gang.
Yeah.
Now
everything else was left to right. Now it's right to left. Yeah.
Right. So
simple screen direction.
But it just tells you this works. He earned their loyalty and he's in the gang. And that's true. From this point forward, Caspar starts to rely on him more and more as his trusted consigliere because he is smart. And he successively starts manipulating Caspar into trusting Dane less and less.
And this is where we start seeing things where, so you have the right side, you have the left side, the sinister side. This is also mimicked in the Dane is always on the right side of frame, and Tommy's always on the left side of frame. Go and watch this movie and pay attention to what shoulder and what side of frame, because those are two different things, Tommy is over Leo and Caspar. You'll notice that there's a symmetry there as well.
And that it's often shot like he's the devil on their shoulder whispering in their ear.
He's the right-hand man.
Yeah.
And then
he's Caspar's left-hand man because he's giving him bad advice.
Because the Dane's the right-hand man. Right. And then they swap, which later happens.
There's a lot of interplay between that, which is basically just Dane's suspicions escalating, because I want to speed things through diegesis. But all you need to know is it gets to the point where Caspar's really wrapped around Tommy's finger. And at the same moment, the Dane says, fuck this, I'm going to do something about it. I know this guy's full of shit. So what he does is he grabs Tommy and he says, you're going to take me right now to the woods and show me Bernie's body. Why would it not still be there?
Yeah, days later, he should be corpseified.
And it's not. So yet again, incredibly tense woods sequence.
Dramatic irony.
Your heart is in your fucking chest.
Because you're like, Tom's dead.
And Tom stops to throw up.
Yeah.
And Dane's like, do you see? He's scared. We know the truth now.
And then Frankie's
Why
like,
would he throw up? And and the Dane's like, where's Leo now? Huh? Where's Leo now?
Yeah.
And someone goes, hey, I found the body.
It's over here.
And it's one of my favorite moments because as the audience, you're like,
what?
Mind fucked. Right.
Yeah.
A body that looks exactly like John Turturro and is wearing the clothes he was wearing is shot through the face, lying in the woods in the same spot. And you're like, what is going on?
Like, how is this possible? Was that earlier thing a dream and he actually killed him? Like, you don't know. Turns out, as he arrives home and he's shaking as he pours himself a whiskey, he arrives and Bernie's at his house again, which is so good. First off, he came so earnest
when he said, God bless you, you saved my life.
Yeah, I owe you forever.
I understand that this means you're a human. You spared my life because you're a human being.
And the only thing Tom asked of him is never come back, and he's back.
And not only that, but you know why he came back? He says, I was thinking and I realized you would get in major trouble with Caspar if he knew you didn't kill me.
Right.
So I figure if I stay in town, you pay me $5,000 a week just to keep that information quiet. If I leave town, I got nothing.
It's grifting.
And he goes,
betting.
But how can you do that after I spared your life? And he goes, what did I say in the woods? You hand me an angle, I got to play it. I'm a machine. That's what I do.
Did you notice the hat work also?
Well, I noticed that because he's such an outsider in so many ways, Bernie has a crazy weird hat that no one else in the movie has had anything like.
But it's like he's got hat in hand, but he's taking the superior status.
Yeah. So imagine someone sparing your life and you use that to blackmail them for a small sum of money.
And Gabriel Byrne is just like
flabbergasted. I'm like,
but he's just like,
get the fuck out of here.
You fucking grifter.
Yeah, exactly.
But he has to, quote unquote, obey that rule, so he does. And then Verna doesn't know where he is. No one knows where he is. He still hasn't been there, but it's revealed that body is Mink's body.
Bernie explains. He says, well, how the fuck did that happen?
So Bernie he murdered his own
friend and sometimes lover. He's a base and business partner. He was a bookie with him.
As grifty as you can get. And dressed him up
a bad
and
guy.
Put him out in the woods. That's such a plan.
Well, what he says is,
I know that the Dane will want to find me.
Well, what he says is, when I got home, because Mink, they were like living together in the same apartment. He says, when I got home and told him what happened, Mink was really upset. He didn't think it was a good plan. And he thought we would get caught. And he especially didn't like when I said, I'm going to blackmail you and stay in town. Right. So things got out of hand and I shot him. And then I thought, hey, I might as well have insurance. So I dressed him up in my clothes, shot him again through the face so you couldn't recognize him, and put him in the woods. It's creepy as
He
hell.
saved Tom's life.
Right, but by being a fucking
by
monster.
being a monster.
Yeah. And I think he tells him that while smiling as a way to say also, see, I have the guts to kill someone and you don't, so don't fuck with me. So then what happens is, this is great. He leaves the room. He goes like, and I'll see you later. I'll be in touch. And we see, as you said, he uses the same trick Albert Finney uses. And it's clear to us that now he will kill Bernie.
Yeah.
He will not hesitate a second time.
Right.
So he grabs his pistol, takes off his shoes so he won't be heard, and like pads down the hall and jumps down the staircase so that he can like beat Bernie to the street.
But Bernie's already one step at...
Bernie's hiding in a closet and trips him.
And he trips him, and then he says, you don't think I
and kicks him in the
didn't think of
ribs and
that?"
bunch and is like, you think I'm a fucking moron? Like, you'll never beat me at this.
Which makes like Bernie seriously, like as a strategist, like
as good
super
as Tommy.
good.
Yeah.
That's twice he was like, I made a fool out of you.
And then what's funny is it's very shortly thereafter that Lazar's men come
and beat the shit
and they're
out
like,
of Tom.
you still don't have the money? Yeah. And you're not affiliated with Leo anymore? Yeah. All right, well, we got to beat the shit out of you. I know. Okay. And they beat the shit out of him. And they go like, sorry, Tommy. And he goes, hey, you're doing your job, man.
Yeah. Tom says, tell Lazar no hard feelings. And Lazar's messenger says, Jesus, Tom, he knows.
Which is, I love this world where you're like, extreme violence is part of the punishment, but no one means anything by it.
No.
Reminds me of the Elvis Costello song, Watching the Detectives. This whole sequence.
It's just ethics.
Yeah. So we get to the climax scene where, and that's another thing. Yeah, Caspar, in one of their many talks, I love, Caspar is explaining, he says, why don't you just double cross the Dane? And he goes, because of ethics. Like he gives the same speech again. So he has these weird ethics.
Well, he's also playing to Caspar's.
Yes.
Like he's already made it very clear he thinks he's an ethical man.
Yeah.
Which is another placement for what we're saying about how Tommy is, he thinks of himself as a principled man. They really mean the same thing.
But his principle is, I can be amoral as long as the ends justify the means.
Right.
Tommy believes that his ends justify the means. So anyway, there's all this stuff with Drop, this big dumb guy that's used for comedic effect. But I want to skip ahead to the point where the climactic scene where things start to unravel is he's walking down the street in the rain. Verna comes one more time and accuses him of having Bernie get killed, and he basically doesn't deny it. And she says, wow, I just really thought you did have a heart, but you obviously don't. That's the end of their arc. Then he goes to Caspar's office where a bunch of complicated shit is going down with the mayor and the police force that we're not going to get into. But suffice to say that the tension in that room raises because Dane starts going, I know he's lying to you. I don't care that there was a body there. And then he finds out Mink was killed. And he starts beating the shit out of Tommy, saying, you killed Mink, and I'm going to beat you till you admit it. Tommy has already convinced Caspar that he's not the kind of guy who would kill Mink, and he's made Caspar suspicious of the Dane. And
who's his right-hand man?
He recently said the Dane is going to come up with some flimsy excuse to kill me soon.
Yeah.
You
Which
watch.
is completely concocted.
Yeah.
The Dane is totally loyal.
The Dane is completely loyal. But the Dane also loved Mink. He truly did.
So he used that one... he's a grifter. He
right.
used that one
But
aspect.
it's great because Tommy basically like makes eye contact with Caspar and is like, see, I was right. He wins the fight yet again without throwing a punch because Caspar sits there for a long time thinking and basically decides... I trust Tommy more than the Dane, picks up the shovel from the fireplace and beats the Dane to death with it.
Which is ultimately the same struggle of like, it's time, like,
Tommy is Iago. And then he shoots him because he says, you always put one in the brain.
Right. But like Tommy's Iago. Like
Tommy is Iago to the vizier in this. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And
or Worm Tongue.
Yeah. What is it? Joy de vivre?
Joy de vivre, yeah. JOI de vivre, jack off instructions. Okay, so like Verna asks, what was our affair about? And he says, nothing to me. It was a way to straighten things out with Leo. Whew. Okay, so the final...
Giving her the hi-hat.
The final leg of his plan, which I think is so brilliant, is the first thing I want to talk about in pedagogy, so we'll serpentine,
yeah.
is... Now the last remaining domino that he has to defeat is Caspar himself, right?
Right.
Everyone's betrayed, but Caspar still has to die. Oh, and Bernie's on his back.
So he's a man with a plan.
So his final plan, the final action of his plan is he tells Bernie, meet me at my apartment at 4 a.m. for us to work this shit out. And he tells Caspar, Bernie's going to be at my apartment at 4 a.m.
Because Caspar knows that Bernie's alive after the Dane revealed it.
He arrives at 4:05 a.m. to see what the results were, which I love because
he just
it
takes
could
a
have
walk.
been either.
Yeah.
Or both. They could have killed each who knows? Or they could have both escaped each other.
And of course, Bernie, because Bernie's very smart, came early.
Bernie came and he says, actually, what'd you think would happen if you were a bad man? And he said, I figured you'd kill him because I assumed you'd come early.
Yeah.
Because that's your nature.
Because Caspar was trusting, Bernie is always not trusting.
Caspar assumed he was going to a meeting at his friend's apartment. Yeah.
And he's like, you got my back.
Yeah.
You know, you helped me with the Dane.
So actually, Caspar does have ethics in the sense that the people he trusts, he really trusts. And
just
that's
leave
why,
it out in the open.
That's why he can't survive in this world.
Yeah. And same problem with Leo. They don't like and the Dane as
Right.
well. They were like, I open my mouth and the whole world gets smart. You
Right.
know, like it's just the idea of like, there's too many people talking. There's too many friends.
Yeah.
You just have a friend.
Yeah.
You don't need to have friends of friends.
Also, I don't recall, did Verna ever shoot someone or someone used her gun like Mink used her gun to
Mink
kill
used
Rog?
her gun, I think.
So she never actually kills anyone. But
No,
so
I don't believe so.
final bit before the denouement is he says, okay, Bernie, now hand me that gun because I have no reason to want to kill you anymore.
Right.
Because Caspar's dead.
And I'll take care of this.
I'll take care of the gun, wipe off the fingerprints.
And they killed each other.
And he goes like, how do I know you're not going to shoot me with that gun? And he goes, because the Dane wouldn't allow it. He's going to be the new head man. You know how he feels about
even
you.
though he's dead. Yeah.
Right. So, but that's to get him to hand him the gun. And then he goes, oh, you know what? I just remembered. The Dane is dead, so I have no reason to not kill you. And he does amazingly.
Just taps right back into that energy.
Like a light switch. Immediately again,
I'm praying to
full
you,
waterworks.
Tommy.
I'm praying to you, look in your heart. And this is the moment where Tommy finally admits who he is to himself. What heart? Bullet to the face.
Yep.
Tommy has fallen apart
And
completely.
then plants
He is nothing.
the gun back and makes sure that it looks like they shot each other on this stairwell.
Tommy is only his hat at this point. Like, that's all he is what his hat represents.
And then the final scene is Albert Finney basically...
They all meet up at Bernie's funeral.
Yeah, and then Leo basically forgiving him and saying, I want you back.
Because I didn't realize you were doing this amazing double agent thing.
And the film ends on a shot that is right after Albert Finney walking away, and Gabriel Byrne is like...
Well, Gabriel Byrne says, no, I'm done being in
out
Mafia.
of here.
Yeah.
He's going to Atlantic City or something. I don't know. He's just gone. And then he puts his hat on.
Yep.
So that's a good...
Pedagogy!
So what do hats mean?
Oh, well, before that, because this will be a quick one, and I wanted to serpentine, we just talked about, I think it's so beautiful that this is a man who is a master manipulator, but because it's just a straight up compulsion, he is a bad gambler. And that doesn't go with being right. His whole life is led by not gambling, but he literally is addicted to gambling. And the movie, like the fates try to tell him, you will always fail if you gamble. You never win bets. You only win when you have everything in hand. Mm-hmm. Then I love that his final act is to leave it up to fate. The final stage of his plan is a gamble. And for the first time ever, he wins a bet. So it doesn't matter that Lazar's men beat the shit out of him. The real bet he won is that Bernie shot Caspar. And I just love that, because for a long time I couldn't figure out what to connect the gambling arc to.
Which is so... There's two things I want to mention about that, about the Coen Brothers and where they're at in their career at this time, and why that is such a salient character and point at this time. Two things. One, in the middle of writing this, they took a 2-week hiatus because they couldn't break it down. Like, they didn't know how to do, quote unquote, a studio movie. And just apropos of nothing, 3-week break, and wrote Barton Fink. the next thing that we'll talk about in this podcast, which is a film about a writer with writer's block. The Coen Brothers turned down a 1989 film that actually Burton directed. It's a little-known superhero movie called Batman.
Oh, they were offered Batman?
And they turned it down because it would interfere with this film. So
wow.
They were these guys who now, like, after Raising Arizona, like, the world's their fucking oyster.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel a little bit about, like, the studio system give them the hi-hat and forcing studio films down their throat. And then they finally agree to do one, but on their terms. And so it's like Batman or Miller's Crossing, you know, those common two films. So they clearly have their sentiment. And then they can't even write that. And they have to break and make Barton Fink a film about someone who can't write. And then come back and finish Miller's Crossing and then shoot it. That's why it didn't come out in 1989. It came out in 1990 because they had a prolonged period of not knowing how to break the film down, even though it was already an adaptation. Well, to me, Gable or Byrne is basically their plight in terms of like, I'm a principled man, but I also am a man with a plan. I want to succeed on my own terms, but I do have wants and desires that are going to interfere with that.
I think we'll talk even more about that in Barton Fink because that's like this.
But I just think that
tensions there.
They're like tight at the hip for me.
They're kind of twin films because they were thought of in the similar time. Yeah. So as far as hats, because the cover of this is a hat. The first shot of it is a fedora blowing away down the road away from camera. And there are enough shots of hats and mentions of hats that they always. I've seen this movie with dumb people, and they go, "I think the hats meant something." Like, so, you know, it's there.
Oh no, I said that.
Well, no, there's many interpretations to the hats.
I'm the dumb guy.
One is definitely it's your membership in the club or it's your status in the club. Because
it means status.
When we start with Tommy and he's down in the dumps in the beginning of the movie, not the reason, but at the same time, his hat got won in the poker game he lost last night. So his first little mini quest we see him do is to try and get his hat back, and it turns out Verna took it. And that's the first excuse he has to go to his apartment and have sex with her. But at the same time, the symbolism is clear. He was a principled man who was a totally company man and had a totally clear conscience as far as I've done everything right by Leo, and then Verna took his hat. Like Verna makes him feel that he's compromised his status within the trueness of his identity as a gangster.
And Caspar getting the hi-hat all the time means that your hat is higher than mine, and it doesn't deserve to be.
And Caspar, very pointedly, is bald and doesn't wear a hat.
Yeah.
So he's like almost ashamed by because he has this. He's definitely overcompensating all the time. That's
Finney also doesn't wear a hat. I think that's something.
Maybe
with
they're so powerful they don't have to.
Yeah.
And, of course, Tommy's hat is the one that is the symbolic one, almost 95% of the time.
And there's Tom has a line, Verna says, "What you chewing over?" Tom says, "Dream I had once. I was walking in the woods. Don't know why. Wind came up and blew me hat off." Yeah. It's just like, and then she says, "And you chased it, right? You ran and finally caught up to it and picked it up.
But then you picked it up and it turned.
But it wasn't a hat anymore, and you changed it into something else, something wonderful."
Yeah.
He's like, "Nah, it stayed a hat, and no, I didn't chase it. Nothing more foolish than a man chasing his hat," which is what he is doing the entire movie.
So we have the same brain. Because I think that's the beginning and end and the key to the hats. Yeah. Especially when here's how I think they deployed it, which is great. The opening shot is a hat blowing away. And you're keyed to wonder, why was that your opening shot? When he describes that dream, you realize the opening shot was a shot from that dream. Yeah. Like literally, it's not a diegetic shot from the action of the film. That opening shot was a reference to the dream he's now describing.
And it's on the camera's on the ground. It's looking like the leaves wisp across, and then if I remember correctly, it looks up at the a vanishing point shot of trees.
That's under the opening credits. That's a different shot.
Oh, okay.
But I want to talk about that next.
But it's all the woods.
Just to wrap up the hat thing. So that keys you in to realize this dream is important. And then I think when you parse the dream, you're absolutely right. that the important point is he feels his identity is running away from him. And she says, well, a normal human being with a heart, anyone would. So you want it back, right? And of course he does, because we see through his actions that's all he wants. Mm-hmm. But another facet of this dead on the outside person is that
he thinks it's foolish.
That will never be admitted.
Yeah.
He says, there's nothing foolish than letting the world know you care about anything or trying to get something. Mm-hmm. Because then maybe you won't be in an advantageous position to manipulate things.
Right.
And that's in the same scene where she says, a lie and no heart, Tommy. That's you all over. And she says, we're really bad people at one point. And he goes you think so? And she goes, yeah, Tommy, we're both real heels. Do you not see that? We're terrible.
Yeah. So I think the woods... So I think there's a way in which they, I don't know if there's a symbolic nature to the woods. I did have a thought, though, which is that the shot is from the ground. So there's something morbid and, death inviting about the shot of a hat being whisked away in the wind. Kind of in, a Lawrence
but don't
of
conflate
Arabia.
The shots.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying the fact that they both happen in the woods and his dream is about woods and he's losing his hat.
But I think an important point is, under the opening credits, that shot where you're dollying but the camera's pointed straight up, that recurs in the John Turturro in the woods. Exactly. I'm sorry, not in the second sequence when Tommy thinks he's going to be killed.
Yeah. In other words, I think it's the point of view from a grave is what I'm trying to get at. I think that the reason that they put it on the ground is that there's something about looking up when you're thinking about status and hats, looking up towards the heavens and wishing for a better lot than the one that you have.
It's a movie about people climbing up, so it's
in the woods and
from the ground towards the heavens. Yeah.
And at one point, Caspar actually says in his first scene, he's like, "If we don't have ethics, what are we? We're just like animals in the jungle." Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what this movie is kind of trying to say, is that we built ethics and we built these ideas of principles. In a way, it's a nihilistic film once again.
Well, and Turturro also says, you just made me realize, I can't die in the woods like an animal.
Like an animal.
Like an animal. So I think there might also be commentary on, which is a simple level, but it's true, is you think the animals are confined to the woods? Look at all these human animals.
Exactly.
Back in civilization.
And not only that, we are still animals just because we have a different...
Yeah.
Just because we have hats
We're just
does not make
us
any different from our base influences, things like love. Things
they should reshoot this movie with just animals in fedoras as all the characters. It's Babe Pig in the City style.
No. It would be a director's fucking dream to just work with only animals.
So you mentioned nihilism. That's something I highlighted for pedagogy. I thought... when I first saw this, I always thought it's just fun mafia movie, and their goals were for it to be fun and tightly plotted and engaging and surprising, right? Now I'm wondering, is it their first true full-on nihilist film, and it's like a stealth nihilism film? Because I do think most people would view it as a Batman, meaning at the end, you're just glad he lived. But if you pour through Tommy's story, it's inescapable that it's the story of realizing that he's dead inside and nothing matters.
Well, we talked about this on Raising because we were comparing.
You think Raising's nihilistic?
Yeah, I mean, we were comparing Hudsucker and this as it's not entire it's nihilistic in just the way they approach films.
Same as Burn After Reading,
right?
Even though
there are some films that you could call nihilist, but they are nihilistic filmmakers. And by what I mean, and I think we mean by that, is that they believe that our perspective is building order out of chaos. There is no order in the world's chaos. That doesn't naturally occur. We, in our perception, like a Schrodinger's cat kind of observation, assume that there's an answer. And that is in Blood Simple. That's in Raising Arizona. Circumstance gets the better of you sometimes, or your plans come to fruition or not, but you're kind of powerless.
That's why I'm so excited.
You can be the best fucking
sure
person at the game and still lose.
That's why I'm so excited to get to Hudsucker, because it's so weirdly different than that.
Right.
But yeah, I agree that this is kind of a twin film to Burn After Reading, in the sense that it's saying, or I'm sorry, that Raising is, in the sense that they say, nihilism can be funny too. Like nihilism doesn't always have to bring depression.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's tragic and sometimes it's laughable.
But I will say, when I watch this movie on the surface level, I feel it as a fun, hard-driving, constant twists and turns, whodunit, what's going to happen, oh my God, I'm surprised. When I think about it on the human level, it's a really sad movie. It's quite a tragedy.
Which is why I can't wait to get to Big Lebowski, because I feel the same way about that movie.
That it's a secret tragedy?
It's a secret, beautiful, hilarious tragedy.
Because Donnie dies?
No, in a way, yeah. Yeah, but let's save that for later. I'm just saying what you're dropping in terms of like, it's the sleeper kind of like meditation on how you can still have all these wants and there's just not going to come out the way you want it, man.
Yeah.
And everything has to go through the wash. And sometimes when you mix your reds and your whites, you come out with pinks, sometimes your goals are antithetical to it. You are an animal because you have an unnecessary urge for self-destruction, apparently. And I think that's what this movie is about, is that he is always taking his hat or putting it on, taking his hat off or putting it back on.
Nice. Yeah. Just watch it again, thinking about when he chooses to take his hat off. It's very important.
Literally, anytime there's a hat in any frame,
it means
something.
Right. I mean, the first punch Albert Finney throws knocks his hat off. He's out of the game.
Right, he's out of the game. Everything has some kind of punctuation to it. Verna takes his hat.
I think it's How'd He Do That time.
How do you do that?
What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
How'd he do that? I got some loaded up, so.
You go.
I just think this is great. Michael R. Miller was their most frequent editing collaborator at the time, and they do say it's Miller's Crossings, just like, so it'd be like if we made a movie and it was called like Abe's Road.
That's true.
Just Miller's Crossing. I don't know, why not? And John Polidor, who I cannot imagine not being Caspar, was originally cast as the Dane. And it seems so perverse.
No.
That's wrong. No. And he campaigned to be Caspar. And I think he steals the movie.
He's sweaty all the time.
There's amazing performances throughout. I think he's the strongest performance in the movie. Johnny Polidor as Caspar. I love it.
John Turturro based his performance on the film's cinematographer.
Do you know anything about that movie?
What?
Oh, based it on the cinematographer.
Yeah, his performance came from how he was mimicking mannerisms in his walk and his speech.
Well, Barry Sonnenfeld is constantly pleading for his life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a little bit.
Speaking of Sonnenfeld, this is actually the last one he did cinematography for. So brace yourselves, people. It's Deacon's time, baby.
Yeah, next episode, just assume that Abe is constantly erect.
You're gonna start having to get used to hearing the words Roger Deakins.
Yeah, because he's my favorite filmmaker.
And mine. Yeah. Steve Buscemi was cast as Mink LaRue because he could speak faster than anyone else they auditioned.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking
And that's amazing because is this Buscemi's first Coen role?
Yeah.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm so happy that just his speed of talking got him on this team because, as we know, he will become one of the MVPs of the Coen.
Oh, yeah. He's in the stable.
So this is the beginning of a very bright collaboration.
I think this, even though, and once again, budget $14 million, box office $5 million. What a movie in terms of the box office failing and just jump-starting so many careers. Frances
it's their
McDormand's
first with Turturro. Well, she was in Raising.
Yeah, that's true. But it's just keeping tabs on all the people who are... Holly Hunter isn't in this, but... Yeah.
So Tommy checks out McDormand's butt very obviously when she walks through the room.
That's true. She's the secretary of the mayor.
Yeah. I believe. The line "Jesus, Tom" is said 8 times, leading to a theory that maybe there's a Jesus parallel, he's supposed to be Jesus, but I don't get anything out of that when I try to connect the dots.
I don't get, because there's no forgiveness in him.
Yeah.
He's a rage monster when it comes down to it.
Oh, by the way, I just want to say a couple people have asked if we're covering Crime Wave. I don't think so.
We're not going to cover
Okay.
Crime Wave.
Same deal as like Suburbicon, right? I don't need to cover that.
No, we want they penned and directed.
That's the deal.
17.
The brothers have high standards. Oh,
we might capture it on frame rate.
The version of Danny Boy in the epic Tommy gun sequence was recorded from scratch for the film because it doesn't time out the way the traditional song actually does. It's timed to fit the fight sequence and make it super epic.
Because it plays, even though he jumps out of the record player. Like the room with the record player, it still plays.
This is great.
Beautiful.
In the original draft, on the front page, they did what screenwriters do sometimes. They had a bunch of suggested actors for each role. So you want to hear some?
Yeah.
Tommy, Willem Dafoe. I'm taking a second to imagine each one. Yeah.
Right.
Andy Garcia. Elias Koteas. I don't know. Dylan McDermott. Tom Sizemore. That would have ruined the movie, in my opinion.
Sizemore would be a great Dane, though.
But a good Dane, but not a good Tommy.
Yeah.
Verna. Linda Florentino, Marcia Gay Harden,
Well, that's
Laura Semetz. Don't know.
Well, Marcia Gay Harden.
Well, I know Marcia Gay Harden. Yeah. She made it. Bernie Birnbaum. Let's see. Maybe I'm boring us. Okay, I'm gonna skip to. I'm gonna just find famous people. Oh, Ian Holm might have been Leo.
Oh,
Bilbo Baggins himself as Leo.
Oh, that would be cool.
He could have been a good Leo.
You can't replace.
Oh
Finney,
my God, dude.
But Ian Holm kills it.
I'm sorry, but actually, as much as I love Albert Finney, I could replace him with one on this list. So the next one, John Mahoney, decent option.
Yeah, playing Faulkner, and
he'll be in Barton Fink next. But they considered Richard Jenkins. Oh. Richard Jenkins is a strong Leo.
Richard Jenkins.
Yeah.
Oof.
Ooh.
What was wait, I gotta be wrong about this. Burn After Reading was the first film that
Jenkins is in for them?
Yeah.
I think it may be.
That is...
We'll correct ourselves in another episode if we're wrong.
If we're wrong, or just point it out and then...
Is he in Lady Killers? No, that's Simmons. J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, that's J.K. Simmons. Because that is a match made in fucking heaven.
Yeah, totally. Jenkins should be in more Coens. Eddie Dane, Kevin Spacey. Don't need it.
I could kind of see it, but no.
And also, side note, Eddie Dane's original name in the script.
Because Kevin Spacey was good in L.A. Confidential as that kind of like wise guy.
Yeah, but I like.
I don't know.
That he ended up being like a wall of cold.
It doesn't feel Coen enough.
Also, Eddie Dane was originally named Blue Point in the script. Don't know why.
Well, that's...
So of their original choices, only Marcia Gay Harden and John Turturro got the people they were going for.
The ones they were going for.
Fun fact that I noticed and asked you about, it's really hard, maybe impossible, to tell what city this is supposed to be taking place in.
I think it's supposed to be New York.
You think it's New York?
Yeah, because I think that the woods are like Albany country, and like the downtown.
I see.
But they never explicitly say it.
IMDb points out that one of the only clues you could take is when he says we should pack up and leave. She says, "Where would we go, Verna? Niagara Falls," which means they're probably in New York State, so it's probably New York City.
East, yeah.
Well, writing the screenplay, the brothers tentatively titled the film Big Head, which was their nickname for Tommy in the movie.
Yeah.
The first image they conceived of was that of a black hat coming to rest in a forest clearing, and then a guy with a massive head trying to cram into it. No, that's not what it says.
Just a big head.
Then a gust of wind lifts it into the air, sending it flying. And what's funny to me is they mention every time they talk about this movie, yeah, that image came to us, and we knew we were going to make this movie. I don't get that connection.
I get it.
It's amazing. Good. I guess that's all that's important. Because it's nuts that they're like,
I can't explain it.
Hey, brother. Yes, brother. Filmmaking brother. Hey, brother.
By the way, they're touching their peens together.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, brother.
This moment.
Yes, filmmaking brother. What about a hat? You mean blowing through trees?
Through leaves?
That's your movie.
That's your movie. Yes. We'll call it something crossing.
Exactly.
Who's editing for us again?
Shitheads Crossing.
Big Heads Crossing.
So this has been our review of Shitheads Crossing. We'll see you next time for Barton Fink. Barton Fink. Barton Fink. Barton Fink. This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.